when men or women talk about female sexual desire or the lack thereof, or the lack of presentation, or the lack of it showing up, I often say, and this, there are caveats to this. So I am an Enneagram 8. I like that about me. I'm going to.
I like that about you.
Sass and punch and poke to challenge and push thought. But this was actually said in my training process, and I still hold to the words and make it more global. At this point. But basically I say it may be that she doesn't like the sex she's being offered.
That's right.
And I stand by that. And we had a very dear colleague, someone we both deeply respect. So I don't know if I agree with you.
Right.
Which, like I said, fair game.
Great.
And I think her and I are actually more on the same page than not.
I think it was more semantics.
It was semantics.
Yep.
And I am purposely poking at some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
By holding to those words.
Oh, absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I've actually been rereading, re-listening to a book that textures why I hold to that.
Yep.
Because that statement's not just about the exchange between a woman and her sexual partner or spouse.
Yep.
It is more global than that.
Yeah,
the
for sure.
sex that women have been offered at large is not appealing to most women. They don't want it.
Yeah.
They don't want the sex they're being offered.
Yeah.
You know? And when I talk about that, I'm talking about like this global idea of how sex has been defined for them, what women have been told that they are obligated to do. It pulls, on so many levels, it pulls women away from everything that needs to develop for them to actually have a genuine, my sexual appetite and desire. And so one of the books that I'm re-listening to for a different kind of project and purpose is Burnout by the Nagoski sisters.
Okay.
And Amelia, if I'm going to get this right, Amelia is like she went and got one of these impossible degrees to become like a music conductor. And Emily is a sex educator.
Okay.
And they wrote this book together. And in some of the things that they unpack is the systemic issues against women that contribute to burnout. And what I understand as a sex therapist and educator is if my body and nervous system aren't well, I'm having a real hard time finding my sexual desire, my sexual appetite.
For sure.
And so they unpack a whole bunch of philosophies and theories that basically explain why we've moved women away from themselves, away from their female sexuality. So when I say she doesn't want the sex she's being offered, she doesn't want the sex that the world has offered her. She is uninterested.
Okay.
So that's where I've been.
Well,
for a hot minute.
Yeah. You know I agree with you on this.
I know you agree.
Right. I agree with you on this. And I wanna dig around the purpose of why we say things a certain way.
Yeah.
You can't integrate a new thought without agitating old ones.
Yes.
Right? So the reason why it's important to agitate with the way we communicate certain things is to disrupt this notion that everything we say must be in the most polite fashion so it can be as palatable as possible to as many people as possible.
Well, so what you just brought up is like a whole portion of that book.
Really?
Yeah. I'm telling you, both men and it was written for women, but like all parties should read it. So they quote Kate Mann's work, which specifically from her book Down Girl, which unpacks misogyny. And it talks about human giver syndrome. Like the people who their purpose is to give versus the humans that their purpose is to be. And that by and large, women, and I would argue minorities, are supposed to give, which means we're supposed to be nice, pretty, palatable, and make things easy for the beings of the world. And that shows up in sex. That 100% shows up in sex.
Wow.
And one of the things they talk about when you're addressing the systemic contributors to burnout is that so the pushback that I got from our very dear friend and colleague was that when I say it like that, it removes what we call the locus of control from the woman to take back her sex life. And I do sort of get that if you hear it that way.
Right, understood.
But I think the world has taken the locus of control from her in its systemic practices.
Agreed.
Okay, so in the book, the Nagoski sisters talk about you have to name, at some point you have to name the systemic problem to walk out of and regain back. So when you're talking about being disruptive and an agitator, like they actually unpacked in the research why that is true. You can't just go, well, it's a systemic issue. We know that to be true. It doesn't. No, you have to name it to walk out of it.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So if I could get paid to be a professional disruptor, I would. I mean, like that is like core to my being. But that's what I'm trying to do is disrupt
that's right.
the line of thinking.